Welcome back to the Big Fella Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Tanner. Today, I've been feeling a lot and hearing a lot about the concept of people pleasing. And I have a really effective structure to help with people pleasing because I'm a people pleaser by nature. I am raised by people pleasers. I am surrounded by friends that are people pleasers. And I have pretty much 80 to 90% of my client base would probably call themselves people pleasers as well. And this leads to a pretty horrible amount of burnout. So we're going to talk about it today because I have some really effective and helpful structures and kind of a good thought process to go through to help anyone actually struggling with people pleasing. So what is people pleasing from the top down? I'm just getting right into this. I'm not really screwing around. I'll eventually come down with some segments and other stuff like that, but I don't have very much time today, and I wanted to just kind of dive right in because I'm not even supposed to be recording this. This is kind of an extra episode with my schedule, but the reason I felt compelled to record today's episode was I have heard about people pleasing. I have seen people tell me that they're people pleasers, and I have seen it in action through the people that I work with. There is a huge correlation of someone who is drastically overweight or even just not happy with their physical health and people pleasing. There is a very significant, noticeable trend as someone who has worked with over 250 clients. Most of what people pleasing really comes down to is putting yourself at the bottom of the totem pole every single time fit hits the shan, or just in general, not making enough time for yourself. And I've talked about this in other videos, but I haven't talked about it in this way. And so if you feel as if you've struggled with people pleasing for a multitude of reasons, people pleasing with your family, with your friends, at work, then this video is for you. If you feel like you are constantly giving yourself the short end of the stick and giving all of your energy to other people, you feel like you're constantly overthinking and stressed out and you have too much on your plate and you don't have enough time to have any time to give to yourself because you're too busy working and sacrificing for someone or something else. Now, I think the core of people pleasing is good. I think it's empathy. I think it's people's way of showing empathy through their actions, sacrificing for their family. I work with a lot of dads, a lot of guys working really long hours, and it all kind of looks the same. They want to be providers, they want to help out their family, and they want to put themselves behind the people that they care about. It's an act of selflessness, it's an act of sacrifice almost. And that is pure, and I think there's a lot of that in the world that we don't see or that we drastically take for granted. If you are someone who feels like you're people pleasing the wrong people and you feel like you're getting taken advantage of, before I get into the structure, I just want to say one thing. My mentor told me a very profound statement last time I walked with him, and he said, if you're having a hard time deciding what you should be doing with your life or how to feel fulfillment, figure out who you want to serve. Who do you want to serve? Who do you want to help in the world? And from what I've reflected, it's easiest to be family members, friends, or people who have gone through similar traumas as you, people who have gone through similar problems as you. So who am I helping? People who are overweight. Why? Because I was severely overweight, but I'm also a people pleaser. So now I'm finding people who are trying to overcome people pleasing as well. A lot of the scope of my work has widened away from just weight loss, and I love it. I really do. Also, quick plug before we dive into the real meat and potatoes of this. If you are looking for someone to help you guide through building positive habits, building a lot of the systems I'm about to talk about in today's video, losing weight, keeping the weight off forever, and actually having control of your life and feeling like you actually have life by the reins, and not feel like life is just continuously punching you in the teeth, especially around fitness and health and not being clueless anymore, shoot me a DM over on Instagram at @thebiggestfella__ and we can talk a little bit more about coaching in the Big Fella program. Also, I have a completely free 25-day email course. It's technically 31 days because I threw in some extra stuff at the end. I do mention people pleasing in that course. It's completely free. It'll send you 1 day of free advice, giving you all of the free game that I could possibly give you, and then some, around weight loss, building a healthy lifestyle, building a positive mindset, and also just kind of getting ahead in today's world. So if you would like to check that out, the link is in the description. So now that we've kind of defined what people pleasing is, and now that Doodlebop is here on my desk asking for attention, now that I'm talking on the camera, let's talk about the weight that is carried, because there's trends that I have seen among the people that I know who proclaim themselves as people pleasers. You're carrying an unnecessary weight. You're carrying unnecessary weight for a multitude of reasons. You might be carrying unnecessary weight because you feel responsible for other people. You might be carrying unnecessary weight because you care so much about them that you just want to clear the path forward for everybody that you know. You care so much about them that you expect perfection out of yourself. You expect yourself to never make mistakes, never need a reminder, and never having to use any sort of routines or habits because you'll just figure it out anyway. And this is really where the problem starts. When you want to sacrifice, or you want to provide for other people, you want to give other people and make other people happy, but you do that at your own expense because you're expecting perfection out of yourself. And for some reason, people tend to think that building systems, having habits, having routines, and having reminders is a bad thing. And they're not consciously thinking about this, but they just think that they should know all of this. They're expecting themselves to feel like the master when it comes to helping everyone else. And I'll give some examples of really what I'm meaning here. I have clients that I work with that get down on themselves when they're having a hard day mentally. And it's like, I feel like I should have this figured out by now, even though they're down 30 pounds, 40 pounds, whatever. There's multiple clients, so I couldn't name one. And they will get mad at themselves and not give themselves enough grace when I tell them, hey, you remember, as a human being, you need to be reminded more than you need to be taught. It's okay to have reminders. It's okay to need a reminder. It's okay to need someone there to kind of help you steer the ship in the right direction. Because a lot of people pleasers also tend to get really in their own heads. That's a key factor of people who get burnt out from people pleasing, is that they get in their own heads feeling like they're never doing enough. And that's a selfless act, right? And that's incredibly selfless, and the root of that emotion is kind and well-meaning, but it's unnecessarily sacrificial. Because people who are in this mode of constantly carrying the weight and responsibility for themselves and for everyone else around them other than themselves, right? They say they're carrying the weight for themselves, but really that means going to work, trying to work out, but then all of your other time and energy is getting sucked up by other people. Not knowing how to slow down and be mindful, take a moment to yourself, give yourself what you want, give yourself what you need, right? Self-care, whatever you want to call it. People suck at that. They think that they always need to add more to their plates. And it leads to burnout. So if you feel like you're carrying this weight unnecessarily, whether it's for a friend or a family member, and you're expecting this perfection out of yourself, understand that you are not responsible for anyone but your own well-being. And you are, in fact, neglecting your own well-being because you're trying to think that you're responsible for everyone. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I think I'm responsible for everybody in my family. I'm 24. I'm the oldest son. I have my mom and my dad are still around, and they're in decent health and good health, and my sister, and I have Ashley, and I feel an immense responsibility to just be the guy, the Mr. Fix-It for everything. And they all kind of told me at once one day, it wasn't an intervention, maybe it was, and maybe I'm just too blind to see it. In their own ways, in the same week, they all kind of told me that I need to stop feeling responsible for everyone because it's making me less of a joy to be around. It's making me a ball of stress. And so let's talk about some solutions now. Let's talk about some solutions for expecting this perfection out of yourself, how to solve it, and where to go from here, right? Some literal action steps. Because people-pleasing leads to burnout, and that burnout leads to guilt. And so that guilt just keeps you stuck in the same place. And this is similar to my overthinking video, but this is more specific because I felt and had so many conversations this week alone about people pleasing. And just this idea of self-sacrifice basically is just like putting yourself at the bottom all the time, not having any leftover energy, not having any leftover time or space to hit your hobbies. When's the last time you like actually, did one of your hobbies on purpose just for you? People don't do that. That's the kind of stuff that keeps us alive and gives us some quality reminders. So how do we overcome people pleasing? How do we stop this pattern of just consistent burnout over and over and over, trying to help other people and forgetting about ourselves? Number one is learning to set boundaries. You lack system, so you are at the whim of whatever other people need out of you. You are at the whims of whatever else somebody else needs from you. So you need to learn how to put up some barriers and learn how to protect your own process. You need to learn how to say, I can't do that right now for you, or I will need some help on this. That's also, people think setting boundaries is pushing people away. Setting boundaries is also asking for help. Setting boundaries is also saying, hey, this relationship is a two-way street. And most of the time, the people that you are giving to and sacrificing for will be willing to reciprocate that. Otherwise, it's not a balanced relationship, and you should really think of who you're talking to and who you're doing this for. But asking for help is a form of setting boundaries. And setting boundaries with people can just be a very open, it might feel uncomfortable, but a very open conversation. And it really boils down to, how comfortable are you with getting a little uncomfortable for a few minutes? Talking to someone, say, and most of the time, people aren't asking you to do this. That's the big thing. It's like a lot of people aren't being asked to be such people pleasers. Like people, there are users, there are abusers, there are manipulators that take advantage of people like this, but also it's kind of a self-inflicted wound for a lot of us. It's just kind of how we were raised, that everyone else's opinions and everyone else's thoughts and everyone else's feelings are more important than your own. And as a guy especially, it feels weird. You don't ever want to feel like a burden. You don't ever want to feel like you're burdening the people around you. So learning to set boundaries. How do you set boundaries? You get comfortable with an uncomfortable conversation. You say, hey, listen, this is making me feel this way. Be transparent. People overcomplicate setting boundaries. Be transparent with them. Tell the fucking truth. Crazy. It's a really wild, very new, very novel concept. Tell the truth. Say, hey, I'm feeling really burnt out and I don't know if I can help you with this anymore, or I need to step back for a minute and take care of myself for a second, right? Now, there's obviously going to be other factors, including, sometimes it's your job that's burning you out and you feel like you have to people please. But you can still do this with coworkers. You can do this with friends, and you can do this with family. The closer somebody is to you within your family dynamic, like it's easier to set a boundary with a coworker than it is to set a boundary with a family member. But it makes it even more important to have to set that boundary with a family member. Otherwise, they aren't ever going to understand this, and they are never going to. You can never bet on somebody else changing their patterns for you. You have to make it known and change those patterns yourself. You cannot bet on somebody else changing the patterns, changing their hurtful patterns to help you, because there's no guarantee that they're ever going to do that, and there's a good chance that they won't, because a lot of people are blind to what they're doing and what they're allowing. If I have somebody that's getting incredibly burnt out because they feel like they constantly have to be there for me and help me, I'm going to tell that person to fucking stop. I do it for the people in my life. Again, I fucking hate that I do this, but it's my default mode. And so I have gotten more protective of my processes and been okay with more solitude. And focus on becoming more okay with being alone and being more protective of my workouts, being more protective of my personal life and my hobbies. Battlefield 6 comes out this week. Ashley's going to have the car because her car's in the shop still. Surprise, surprise. We're probably going to have to scrap it for anybody that I've been talking to about that. So I might have a new big fella truck here soon. Who knows? Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Battlefield 6 comes out this week. I'm playing the shit out of that this weekend. I'm playing the crap out of that game. I miss good Battlefield. And I used to feel like I had to justify and explain myself. So that's my second thing. You don't need to justify or explain yourself to somebody else. You have no need to. Setting boundaries does not require an explanation. It does help. to say, hey, you're making me feel this way, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to have to switch to this. But you don't need to over-explain. So many of us feel the need to over-explain and justify our feelings and justify the way that we feel to someone else because we feel like we are a burden. You are not a burden for having feelings. You are not a burden for not wanting to bend over backwards 24/7 for anybody else and leaving yourself with the fucking scraps. It's led you to this point of misery. Fucking stop. It does not make you a burden to set boundaries with people. It does not make you a burden to need to set boundaries, and it does not make you weak to do that either. So, identify what weights you're carrying unnecessarily for people unnecessarily that they didn't ask you to carry. Learn how to set boundaries and communicate that with their people without needing to feel the need to over-explain yourself. You don't owe anybody an explanation for anything. But if you communicate with vulnerability and say, hey, I care about you, but I'm dealing with this, they will care about you more and try to reflect and change their patterns and help you more. Again, asking for help is a form of setting boundaries. So once you do this, whether the boundary is set or not, right? Some people's behaviors will not change when you do this. But this next action step is much more tangible. So I for those of you listening, this is where the writer downer stuff really gets started in the literal practical systems, right? Step 1, set the boundaries, explain, don't over-explain. Understand what weight you're carrying and identify it and address it. Once that is done, I like a mind bubble map, okay? Because what you should do is think about everything carrying weight in your mind right now. What is carrying the stress? Is it family stress, drama? Is it work stress because you're not liking your situation? Is it stress because you feel body dysmorphia? Is it stress because you feel like you're not making any progress in your fitness? Is it stress because of social media and the state of the world and politics or this or that? Whatever the case is, write them down. I draw a big circle on a piece of paper, and then every time I have something that stresses me out, I draw another circle inside of that circle, size dependent on how much it's bothering me. So, how bad Ashley's farts smell is a huge circle for me. Not actually. Work is a big circle. You know, maybe you've got some family stuff, make that a slightly smaller circle. Whatever it is, make this all happen within a larger circle. So you got your big circle, then you got your smaller circles, the varying sizes of how much it's stressing you out. That's your brain and what's being consumed by your brain. Once you have all those circles written out, then take all the circles that you've named and then put them in a list. Now you just do a basic bulleted list. The circles are done. But now that you've had that visual, make a list. And there's two types of lists. You have what's in your control and what's out of your control. It's a T list. Okay, you have one side that's in your control and one side that's out of your control. Take every bubble and put it in one of those categories. Take every one of those bubbles and put it into one of those categories, and you will see what you can control and what you cannot. And I talked about this in my overthinking episode a couple days ago. Maximize what's in your control. Completely release from the stuff that is out of your control. So when we talk about setting boundaries, I cannot control the opinions that people have of me. I think my content is cringe as fuck sometimes. I cannot control the fact that other people might find it cringe too. I'm making content that's helping me grow, and I'm trying to get better at it in a lot of different ways. That's what I care about, and that is what is in my control. I cannot control whether Jimmy fucking Neutron 444 on TikTok thinks if it's cringe or not. I have no control over what he's going to think. It's like trying to control the weather. There's just literally no point. There's just literally no point. So when you can write these things down, you all know I say a problem written is a problem halved. This is why this is so effective. All of these, the thought bubble and the in and out of control list is a literal form of journaling. You're writing these things down to organize your thoughts. So now that you've organized your thoughts into your in control versus out of control, you can now add anything you want to do to maximize what's in your control. Because it's not just about checking your boxes and managing all the balls that you're juggling right now. Maybe part of the thing that's stressing you out so much is that you're people pleasing and you have no time to add something into your life that you've been wanting to. Maybe you've been working so hard and managing all this other stuff with your family that you want to start a fitness journey, you want to start going to the gym, but you just feel like you have no time. And that's part of what's stressing you out and making you so uncomfortable. And you feel like you can't start until you handle some of this. So maybe there's additional things that you can add to your control, to your inputs. If that's stressing you out, if it was in your thought bubble, put it on your list. Because then once you have what's on your list of what's in your control, you can build systems around it. Systems are habits. Systems are routines. And people who people please are fucking terrible with systems because they expect perfection out of themselves and they, for some reason, decide to carry all of the weight themselves on their own shoulders and try not to ask for any sort of help or get any sort of organizational systems or habits. Some people do, some people don't. Most people just expect themselves to remember everything and do everything perfect the first time. And then they get really down on themselves when they don't, and they think they're letting somebody else down. They think they let someone else down, and they by then let themselves down, and they get disappointed on themselves. So somebody who is virtuously fighting every single day to make everyone around them happy is constantly disappointed in themselves because they never feel like they're doing enough, and they're always displeasing someone because they feel like they need to be perfect. Being consistently good over occasionally great wins every time long term. So stop expecting perfection because that's guaranteeing your disappointment. Here's how we move past that even further. When you have your in control list written down, take all of those thoughts, all of those goals, all those problems you view you need to solve, and throw them and find ways to throw them into systems, right? For some of the time, it's just work. Go to work, come home, you've got that. But maybe you want to start the gym, but you don't have a lot of time. Okay, I have a client, Matt, who was working from home the whole time we've been working together, and now all of a sudden he has to start working in the office again. He's kind of mad about it, but he can't control that right now. So what do? We adjusted. We said, okay, we're going to start packing your gym bag in the mornings when you go to work so that you can hit the gym on the way home and make time for it. That is an example of a system. A daily system or a weekly goal, a weekly framework that allows you to check those boxes and maximize what's in your control. So many of us get so obsessed with daily habits and daily routines when in reality, we'd benefit massively from looking at our lives on a weekly scale instead of a daily scale. If we looked at it on a weekly scale, we'd realize not every day is going to be the same or has to be the same. It's kind of ridiculous to expect that you can check off 35 different daily tasks or boxes of your to-do list and have to deal with whatever miscellaneous things outside of your control do pop up, like a car breaking down, like having to, babysit the neighbor's dogs for a week, different things like that. Stuff pops up. So instead, give yourself a weekly quota on some things to work on as your action steps. Because if you can give yourself a weekly quota, like 3 workouts a week, like running 5 miles in a week, like spending 10 total hours on building your side hustle, it could be whatever. It could be 5 more hours playing games with your boys. It could be 5 more hours spending time with your kids. It can be anything. But if you're having a hard time making time for it because it's making time for yourself, build a system that shoehorns it in. Because you can't create more time. You got to make the time that you already have worth more while. And if you feel like there isn't any time and you're having a hard time fitting in this room for yourself, that's the same fucking excuse you've been making this entire time, and you're still stuck in the same position you were 2 years ago, and 1 year ago, and 6 months ago, and now. All I'm saying is expecting something different by doing the same thing is the definition of insanity. I recommend most people take a time audit. What's your screen time looking like? How much time are you spending scrolling on Instagram and TikTok? You can probably find a pocket of 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour for yourself. That's something productive. Scrolling on social media is not rest. It is not rest. So when you make your in control list and you find the inputs, the things that you are in control of, Turn them into systems if they have not become systems. Make them daily or weekly habits, right? If you're stressed out about your financial future, then maybe create a weekly budget to stick to and connect it to a monthly budget. What's a system? I have a monthly budget meeting with Ashley because I manage our finances and I want to let her know so we're both on the same page. That's an example of a system. I now don't have to worry about the money that she spends because I trust her that we're on the same page and I trust the system. When you can trust other people to handle their own shit, and when you can trust the system that you have built to handle the problem, the weight comes off of your shoulders. People who people please burn themselves out because they expect perfection out of themselves, so they feel disappointed while still trying to help all these people, and they lack trust in other people. The reason you feel so responsible for these other people is because you lack trust in them. And it's a hard thing to say, and it's a hard thing to realize. Maybe they've given you a really good reason to not trust them. And that's a whole nother episode. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother episode. But you need to have trust. Have trust in your systems because those systems you can control. So what I recommend, this is everything I do in my coaching program, is I'm building lifestyle systems for people. That's literally what it is. That's all it is. We have a problem. We have a desire. Let's solve the problem, and let's build systems that we can fit in to a weekly basis to get us to our end goal. That in control versus out of control list is one of the most life-changing things that I've done on a regular basis. When I'm really, really, really stressed out, I hit that list every time. I actually write 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things in my control, and 3 things out of my control every day, every morning. That's an example of a system for me. I want to be more grateful, and I want to be more aware of the things in and out of my control, so I do a small version of it every single day because it's easy for me. And another version of a system is I keep this in front of my desk every day next to my keyboard where I work every day. So I never miss a day because I have the system of knowing that it's always going to be in front of my eyeballs because I always keep it right next to my keyboard. You know yourself better than you think you do. And that's the big problem that I see with so many people, especially when they're trying to lose weight, is they say they know themselves, and yet they decide to try to convince themselves to do keto or carnivore. I had a guy in my DMs today tell me, he's like, I'm either going to do a calorie deficit or I'm going to do carnivore. I'm like, okay, calorie deficit isn't a diet. It's just how weight is actually lost. He goes, okay, have you ever done carnivore? I'm like, no. I do it sustainably, and me and my clients just do a high protein, high volume diet instead. And then he asked me for how much my program was, and then I told him that it's affordable and we have multiple different tiers, and then he didn't respond, which is fine. I don't care. But he doesn't know himself well enough to understand that carnivore isn't going to work for him because he already tried carnivore in the past. He doesn't understand himself enough that throwing the kitchen sink at himself and trying to completely flip your lifestyle upside down doesn't fucking work. It doesn't work. You have to make small additions and changes to your existing lifestyle. And that's why my program gets such killer results. And that's why so many people are struggling with the same problems they were struggling with 5 years ago. It's because they're trying the same solutions without awareness of what they're good at and what they're bad at. So to wrap all of this up, stop carrying weight unnecessarily for people that didn't ask you to carry it. Stop expecting perfection out of yourself, because that's guaranteeing disappointment in yourself, and that's lowering your self-confidence. You don't lack willpower, you lack systems. Give yourself grace for needing reminders and systemize those reminders. Set alarms, put reminder sticky notes wherever you need to do. If it's that important, you'll find a way. Learn to set boundaries and stop giving a fuck what other people think. When you set boundaries, you can ask questions and make it known of what you're struggling with. That is a form of a boundary. Those people that are struggling with setting boundaries and struggling with stopping people pleasing are focusing everything in their energy on mostly things that are outside of their control. They're trying to micromanage things outside of their control. So don't do that. Make your mind map, make all of your mind bubbles, identify everything that's on your mind right now, and separate them into a list of what's in and outside of your control. Then maximize your inputs and look at everything on the list that is in your control and build systems around it. Build systems, habits, routines, reminders for yourself on a weekly scale instead of a daily scale, so you can stop people pleasing and start making more time for yourself, your desires, your goals, and your hobbies, so then you can be in a better position to help more people from a full cup instead of trying to fill other people's glasses and pour from an empty cup. All right. I got a call to hop on in 5 minutes. I'd love to stay and linger and try to come up with a cool, funny end segment, but I don't have the time for that today. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if that made sense. This is kind of just a stream of consciousness that I picked up from a handful of calls that I was noticing a lot of patterns. So peace and love. If you have any questions about this, I'd love to hear it in the comments of your experience. If you found that this was true and you resonated with this, hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell, all that fun stuff. I got all my goodies in the link in the bio, free course, all that jazz. Peace and love. Happy Tuesday. I love you to death. Keep it simple, big fella.